This episode is brought to you by Camilla Najat with Exit Realty Metro.
Camilla Najat is an experienced real estate agent who prides herself in finding the perfect home for her clients. Camilla can help you with a comparative market analysis to help determine the value of your home if you're planning on selling, or help you determine the going rate for the neighborhood you're moving into. She can also work with you at your pace.
You can reach Camilla by calling 902-880-8429 or email camilla@exitmetro.ca.
Also, you can find her on Facebook at Camilla Najat, Exit Realty Metro. This is Matt Conrad.
And this is Mike Tobin.
Welcome to the Afternoon Pint.
Welcome to the Afternoon Pint. I'm Mike Tobin.
And I am Matt Conrad.
And I am Lawrence Conrad, and no, we're not related.
No,
unfortunately for Matt.
Yeah.
Lawrence Conrad, no relation.
No relation. Although he's told people sometimes that we're cousins and stuff like
That's
that.
weird.
When it benefits me.
Okay. So how long have you two known each other?
Yeah, so Lawrence and I met Lawrence. Actually, you know what the funny thing is? My first interaction with Lawrence was not an interaction with Lawrence. So at 16 years of age, a little over 16, I joined the reserves, Army Reserves, the PLF, and I went in there for basic training, and everyone's seeing Conrad on my name, and they're just like, "You're not related to Lawrence Conrad." At the time, you were sergeant. He says, "You're not related to Sergeant Lawrence Conrad, are you?" I said, "Maybe." He said, "Family's big enough, but not that I know of." And they're like, "That's probably a good thing."
Yeah. Well, I'm 52. How old are you?
38.
Yeah. So
That could work.
That was kind of like my first kind of heads up about who Lawrence Conrad is this, and then eventually I meet the guy, kind of as time goes on through the military and through the training and everything. But that's how we got to know each other, and eventually I got out. He's still in.
Yeah.
Today is your 35th anniversary.
joined January 9th, 1989.
Oh, yeah.
35 years, Canadian
35.
Forces Army
There you go.
Reserve. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So congratulations on that.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
pretty cool.
So, Lawrence, just give us a little introduction on who you are today. Like, who is Lawrence Conrad?
Yeah. I'm a business person. I'm a Chief Warrant Officer in the Canadian Forces Reserves. I'm a father of four. I'm a little bit of a philanthropist. I guess with the Apex, I'm a publisher.
Publisher, yeah.
Cool, yeah.
ApexMagazine.ca, the celebration of small and medium business. So I'm into a lot of different stuff, and I'm 52, as I just said, and I'm getting tired, but I still love doing it.
You have a few companies now. Is IAT Atlantic, is that your biggest company?
So ISS and IT are what we coined two companies combined for total security management.
Okay.
And then we had to come up with some other names. We took over a couple of other companies, and that's where Mainstay Security Services, MSS, came in, which shares the same crest. I created a Darnock Investments, which is my holding company. So Oprah, Harpo, Conrad, Darnock.
Yeah.
Worked, right? Backwards.
Okay, yeah.
You just reversed the name, but the
Just
crazy
reversed.
thing about it is when he first told me that,
Now I got it.
now you reversed
Give
the
me a
name.
second.
Now Matt wants
But the
it.
crazy thing about it is when we had to when I was in like junior high, I had to in grade 9 I had to invent a company or whatever, and I did the exact same thing where I just reversed the name Darnock, and then he told me that. I was like, that is the weirdest thing.
Darnock is Conrad backwards.
It is.
Yeah, man.
Tobin is
Tobin
Nibot?
Nibot.
Yeah, it sounds really awkward.
Nitob?
Nibot.
And I Tobin
Yeah.
Nibot.
Nibot. Yeah.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of sounds like a sex toy.
Programmer. Nibot Investments Inc.
Anyways. So IAT Atlantic. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, so it's Independent Security Services Atlantic Incorporated and Independent
ISSA,
Armoured Transport Atlantic Incorporated. We used to be known as ISSA, IATA, and someone said people remember 3 letters more so than 4.
Okay.
So then we shortened it to ISS and IT. So it's been an evolution.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
And then as we registered these long company names, the Department of Justice and Registry of Joint Stock Company said you might want to register ISS and IT as an acronym of those names because somebody could take those. So as we've evolved, we actually have multiple companies at Registry of Joint Stocks in order to protect our
branding,
branding of the company itself and make sure it can't be taken or
smart
by someone else. So we have ISS, IT, MSS. So Darnock is a holding company for all 3 companies. ISS and MSS are 2 security companies, and then the Armored Car Company is the division that carries the 9mm and the bulletproof vest and the armored cars and all that stuff. And ironically enough, when we started, that's how we started in the armored car industry. So a little bit of cart before the horse, right?
Right.
The hardest thing you can get into is what we got into.
Interesting. How in the heck did you get here from where you started? So you started in the military?
No, so a little bit of a background there. Actually, Mo Monday Waterloo, I don't know if I'm dropping competition names here, but
No,
I did a 12-minute segment that, 12 minutes of your life you'll never get back, and just to kind of went through my background as an young entrepreneur, a person living out in the sticks in the county, and coming up through life in a kind of a poor environment. We didn't have a whole lot of money as a family. We never had a car in our family till I was like 16 years old. So Dad was a drinker, Mom was a housewife, not a whole lot of revenue coming into the home. And I had a sister who was four years younger, and then a brother came along 12 years after that, and then Mom and Dad split up, and Mom got remarried, and I got a half brother, and I had to move out at a very young age. Actually, I got kicked out. My old man said, "Yeah, son, we love you, but you got to go."
Why?
Well, just I was getting through high school. I was doing okay, but the environment at home just was not healthy, and Dad and I were at odds.
Okay.
And then Dad and Mom, they decided they were gonna split. So I actually did go with Dad for a little while.
Yeah.
And that's when he said to me, he found me a place on Herring Cove Road that I subsequently stayed in for like 7 years. Mm-hmm. We pretty much rebuilt the house for the landlord, but I learned a lot on his house and not mine, which is good. But Dad said, "Son, I love you, but you got to go." And he found me a place on Herring Cove. I lived there for a long time with a girl actually I met in Cape Breton. I've had 3 relationships, and I married the last one, and they were all Cape Bretoners, so I don't know what is.
Oh, there you go.
It might be the fact that all my mother's side of the family hails from Cape Breton, but there's some good, solid women in Cape Breton, and I married the last one, and I got 4 kids with her.
There you go.
So just to back up, so we got the
So you're here in Herring Cove. Yeah. So you get into the military first in terms of just to figure something out for yourself, or what?
So the home environment, I kind of looked at things. I said, maybe I can escape this and get into something, that has a regimented environment, because at home it wasn't that structured. Yeah, it wasn't at all. So I had a few friends in the unit, a military unit called Princess Louise Fusiliers, the PLF for short, that Matt was part of, and that's how we met initially. And I joined, and at the tender age of 17, and it was my first job outside to deliver newspapers, and I became a member of that unit. It gave me the confidence I never had growing up in that alcoholic dysfunctional environment. Being in that military unit shaped who I am today, or a lot of who I am today. So I can't, which is why I'm still there 35 years today, down the road. Without that, I don't know where I'd be, to be honest, and I say that truthfully.
Do you feel like the military saved your life in a sense?
It really did, yeah. I don't know, I could have been one of those fellows that went down, the left side of the road, and God knows where I'd be, but I went down the right side of the road.
So you got into the military. Where did you start? Did you start in infantry? Did you start in a designated?
No. PLF is infantry.
Yeah. So it's a home-based, Halifax-based infantry unit. It's 150 plus years old. Actually, in 2019, celebrated our 150th. That was the year of some time.
Okay.
But no, I got in. My friends were in. They said, "You got to check this out. You get to shoot guns and do all this kind of crazy, wild stuff."
Yeah.
And and defend your country and all that. And I got into it, and I didn't have any cadet experience. I had no background at all in anything military, other than my grandfather was the DD landings. My father was in the PLF for a short period of time, 4 years, and he was trained by Sonny Zink, he's now the honorary RSM of the unit. It's an informal position in the unit, right? And Sonny, I still have contact with Sonny, he's still around. So I knew that lineage, I knew that history, and I said, well, let's get into this. I have friends that do it, I have family that were in it, and I got in and I excelled. I got into the basic training. I did well. I was in shape. Got into the instructional side of things, and I started to climb the ranks pretty quickly. And like I said, when I met Matt, I was a sergeant, so I was 4 bars up the chain there, and I was still doing when I was still climbing, and I gained my drive, initiative, and ambition from the Canadian Forces, and that when I say it shaped who I am, it shaped who I am and where I was going. I knew I wanted to be something more than where I came from.
And quite honestly, too, just to kind of throw it out there for people who may not even know, Chief Warrant Officer is a highly earned position, not a given position. Because, you can go to university, you can pop out, and anyone can be an officer if you go and get your university degrees and things like that, and walk out and have someone salute you all the time. But a Chief Warrant Officer is earned.
So I used to say, if you stay in long enough, you'll become the RSM someday. And it's funny because my last speech to the unit was that I used to say that, and I digress, because it is an earned position. You know, it's something that you work hard towards. It's 1% of the Canadian forces, both regular force and reserve, and to get there, it's not just a position that you fall into, right? It's a selection process, and you have to have the drive and ambition to fill that role, because you're in charge now. Not in charge, you're responsible for hundreds of people at that point. And I mean, you know, I always said the reserves, Canadian Forces Reserves, air, land, or sea, right? The Air Force, the Navy, or the Army. It's not like working at McDonald's or a retail outlet, right? You know, everything the regular force does, including going overseas, a reserve force member will do.
Yeah, they can be called to do. Yeah, exactly.
100%. So domestic operations or overseas operations, you know, we do it all, and it's one of the reasons Canada has a somewhat of a fighting force, right?
Yeah, and you're still part of the military today.
Yeah,
in fact, you have a meeting later tonight. Is that correct?
I do. I was on a call this afternoon for some administrative support in Ottawa, because I work under the Vice Chief of Defence Staff, and we have to learn all these new databases and systems, and I'm not a computer guy at all.
Yeah.
So I'm the regional chief for Atlantic Canada for Employer Support Programs, which is an organization that helps anyone in the Air Force, Army Reserve, or the Naval Reserve.
So you run countless businesses, like literally countless.
Well, the actual the civilian side, and then the military side.
The military side. Yeah. Like, when do you get time to relax, man? What do you do to kick off and chill?
That's where the ADHD helps out, right?
Yeah. Nice. Okay.
So you may pick up on this as you listen to the podcast, but I'll jump from left to right, up and down, in and out.
That's okay.
So the ADHD helps. The OCD, I guess, does. I always try and use these what they would call weaknesses. As and turn them into strengths, right?
Sure.
So the OCD, the obsessive compulsiveness, the ADHD, the ADD,
So do you have any kind of hobbies, or is it just hobbies are business and work?
Well, I don't smoke or do drugs, but I do like to have a few drinks, and that's kind of my outlet, I guess, a little bit. But my hobby, really, I mean, I run my civilian businesses. The military is supposed to be that part-time, hobby, but it's basically what it's become is the best second full-time job I ever had. So when my general manager for my group of companies, when I come in, he says, "Oh, you're not doing the military today." So what happens, and I think it's psychological, and basically when I get a phone call from the military, even though it's my part-time job, my secondary duty, I always put it in the front, and I attend to those tasks first to get them done, and it's always been that way. And I've had people in the civilian world go, "Why do you prioritize that over this?" And I say, because I wouldn't have this without that.
Smart.
Yeah.
He very much like Lawrence very much like kind of lives in both worlds of that civilian and kind of private life. Even to the degree last year, you kind of organized the Executrek, which I got to go on, which was actually really cool. Yeah. You can tell our listeners really what the Executrek is.
So being part of the reserves is great, right? You train with the unit, and it's all military centric. So when I left, my last term with the unit was 5 years as a regimental sergeant major. So my rank is a chief warrant officer, but the position is regimental sergeant major. And after 5 years of that, off I go, and I get selected for Employer Support Programs, which is a new organization stood up to support, the reserves at the national levels, all three elements, right, air, land, and sea. And for me, it was perfect. The reason I was selected is because I am a business person on the civilian side, with currently 28 years actually coming up. In business, and a successful business, and I employed reservists. Actually, when I started my company as a security company with reservists. And the joke was that when the unit wasn't training, they were with me, right? The soldiers that were in our unit. The job that I moved into in the reserves, being the regional chief for Employer Support Programs, was a perfect marriage of what I do, where I have the civilian side with all the business contacts and all the relationships that I've built over time, right, and a good reputation in business. Now I was able to leverage that and those contacts with what we need to do in the military, which is expose these small and medium businesses and large business, but small and medium businesses, the backbone of the Canadian economy. I always preach that. Yep. But all three levels of those of businesses, with owners, directors, general managers, and supervisors, I was able to leverage my contacts on the civilian side and marry them into to the military side, where we were able to bring together an event called an Executrek, where the whole point and the whole aim is to have these civilian members come in and see what reservists do in the air, the land, and the sea. And we have a meet and greet on the night before the actual event, which is called the Executive Trek, meaning that we're going to go somewhere.
Yep.
And the next day, we ended up going to Aldershot and watching a bunch of Army Reserve training with the crash, the bangs, and the booms, and the screaming of the soldiers and the firing of the weapons, and the shock and awe. And civilians love that. All the phones
Smart.
were out.
What a great strategy.
Yeah. Well, it's
cool.
great.
It's
And
a cool idea.
it allows these members of these businesses who employ reservists to see this is what they do. They don't just go running around the woods all weekend or jumping on a ship all weekend or flying around in planes all weekend. And then in the afternoon, we went out and got a tour of a Harry DeWolf class of ship.
Yeah.
A big Canadian warship.
It's a brilliant thing to put together.
It was. So I wasn't just me. I mean, you never take credit for anything yourself in the military, right?
Right.
But it was a team of us. And it was very well executed. And there's a picture on Facebook, and it's gotten around where I think we had 60-odd people in attendance.
Nice.
For the reception, and the next day we had 20-odd. And for what we do, we try and do a couple of these in each region. So there's 4 regions in Canada, right? Okay. And for the Atlantic region, we try and do 1 or 2 per year. And I had a lot of help. Matt actually helped me ensure that there was some people there from his company and some colleagues of his.
Nice.
And we had everyone from insurance companies to police departments to the executive director of the Halifax International Airport Authority.
That's cool. Actually, you know what? Honestly, like I said, I went on the event. It was really, really a really great event for multiple reasons. Not only it was a bit of a flashback.
I was going to say it brought back some memories.
It brought back some memories, and I was like, oh, I get a little tingly when the C6 went off.
when it didn't jam.
Yeah. So there's things like that, and like you could tell it, right? You could hear it. But and then obviously going to see a brand new warship was really cool. But on top of that, it was a networking event, essentially 100%. Too. Yeah. But the really great thing about it is that you're exposing people who are potentially employing reservists. And like as Lawrence said, they're not just running around the woods and having fun and playing paintball. They're training to do things, and their message is almost like be flexible with these people because they may be called to duty, they may be called to do some extra duties and things like that, and they might need some extra time off or whatever it may be. But in return, you get a really great employee, a disciplined, structured employee. And I think that's kind of like the biggest thing of this movement. That's the benefit that they get. But then on top of it, it is a networking group. And I remember being in the front of this ship and just talking to a bunch of really impressive people. Yeah. And
it's cool.
Yeah, some people who I would actually would like to have.
So
on
you're
the
going to
show.
do another one this year
for 2024. I'm sure they'll spool. I don't know if they'll make me the OPI, but But
sure.
no, that means that people really want to get out there. They really want to connect. They really want to network.
Right.
And we had people that had come down from Ottawa to mix and mingle. From that, so we brought those worlds together. We brought the Atlantic region together with the head shed in Ottawa that run, at the Chief of Reserves, that level. So in order for them to mix and mingle, and it's hopefully going to have some long-term after effects. Thank you.
So that's the getting into business. So you go from military and then you're open. How is it that how do you open your business?
The bridge. So I'm in the military at 17, and at 21. I had the opportunity to get into a retail confectionery outlet. It was an old Yogan Fruz stand. If you remember Yogan Fruz.
It was a what?
Yogan Fruz, ice cream and frozen yogurt. Yogan Fruz.
Okay.
You'd have to be our age to understand it. My age, anyway.
Okay.
But it was a nice little kiosk, 300 square feet with neon lights on it, and it was for sale for I think it was like $12,000. And there was a fella across the way that ran another business in Bedford Place Mall, and he had it. And this is the one time my dad supported me in business, and he said to me, "See, I never did a lot for you growing up, with all the different issues that we had. So, but I want to help you with this business." So he loaned me $5,000.
Okay.
I paid him off with interest.
Nice.
And I started this. I took over this business, and I ran it in the mall.
Yeah.
And it was my first foray into business. And here's a guy just barely at high school running a business.
Good for you.
No MBA.
So you wanted to do this stuff.
I did. I wanted to get into business. What my high school graduation photo says? It's to join the military, get rich in business somehow. I did both. So it really worked.
Perfect.
And so I bought this outlet, and I ran it for about a year, and I went away in the summers to make money with the military teaching. And I had a girlfriend at the time who ran the shop in Bedford Place Mall. I would travel back and forth, so it was an Aldershot, stayed close to the area, so it was only an hour and a half away.
Yep.
And I made both work, and then I was teaching for St. John Ambulance, and I had just bang, everything on the go, trying to generate revenue as much as I could.
Military, St. John Ambulance, and running a frozen yogurt business.
Well, it wasn't just like a Dickie D bicycle type thing. It was 300 square feet, a couple of big freezers. We sold different foods.
Yeah.
Cool. And I learned a lot in a very short period of time.
Smokes.
Everything from how to register a company to the insurances you needed to the fact that the food health inspectors can be hard on you when you're not doing things right, which we did.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot. And
it's always easy to learn quickly. As soon as you're starting to jump in and start to learn a
100%.
business, it's
you
like,
can go to
you got to do
university,
this, you got to do that, you got to do this, and it's just you just get it done. You just push through.
You can go to university. I don't take nothing away from anybody who's got a degree and learn. But I think when you learn what you learn is a lot in a box.
Both ways are super effective.
100%, right?
The entrepreneur angle is, to me, is just so it's just a learning, right? You get so much out of just doing it, figuring it out, falling on your face.
It's a Chinese proverb, right?
Yeah.
It's I see and I understand, I hear and I forget, but I do and I remember.
Yeah.
So I did that.
So that was successful.
Yeah,
right off the bat, you say, or
well,
how the yogurt
we
stand?
had our challenges.
I'm sorry, I keep calling it a yogurt stand. I don't try to be.
No. It was retail confectionery outlet, sold ice cream and frozen yogurt, and some a variety of foods and drinks. But essentially it was about the length of this room right here.
Okay,
that's
pretty good. So
I was 21 at the time, right? I was a kid.
That's good for 21. Jeez, I'm not knocking it. So it was successful, right?
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it was. But at about a year in, they wanted to raise the rents. They wanted to use the space for something else. They wanted to renegotiate the mall.
Right.
And I pushed the whole, young entrepreneur kind of trying to make it, and I had to shut it down.
Yeah.
So I went back to the military reserves and I started working with them again, and that's how I generated, my income, and still taught for St. John Ambulance as one of their instructor trainers. And then another opportunity came by where I ended up working.
So you held on to money for the hustle. I think it sounds like a common theme here. It was like you kind of came back, you stacked your chips again, and then you went out and started the next endeavor. Is that right?
We call it consolidate in the military. Right? Okay. I had to consolidate. So I ended up, putting some money in the bank and paying some bills, and I had to recover. It was a $14,000 loss, and I said, I'm not going bankrupt on $14,000. I'll go bankrupt on $14 million maybe, but not $14,000.
Sure,
because that's what I owed.
Right.
So I paid the debt off. I paid off that loan, and I busted my butt to do it.
Yeah.
But another opportunity, when I was 24, 3 years later. Came about where I applied to work for a local armor car company. So at the time there was Loomis and there was Brinks.
Yeah.
Then there was this local company, and it was run by a fellow from Yarmouth. And I hooked up with him, and I worked for him for about a year. He seen the ambition that I had, and he said, "You want to do sales?" So I got into sales, and this is when I made the conscious decision. I think I was making $300 a week with the reserves.
Right.
$400 a week with the reserves. Right, not a lot of money, but back then you could survive off it. Minimum wage was $5.25 an hour. He said he'd pay me $300 a week if I went to work for him, but the potential is on the sales and the the residuals and the percentages, and I did it.
Yep.
And I went out there and I started working it. I did it for about a year, and it was enough to survive on it. And he was having a problem with his business partner at the time, and to make a long story short, he took me on as his 50% business partner.
Wow.
So we stayed together for 10 years. We built the business from an armor car company to a year later being asked to go into the security division, into the security services. So some of the contracts that we had for armored car, picture this, you got a young guy, 20-odd years old, walking into a Canadian Tire or Shoppers or a lot and say, "Hey, listen, I got this armor car company I just started up. I bought a truck from the States. I literally bought a truck from the U.S. From Princeton Armored. We drove it back on the I-95. We got lost. We got lost in the Bronx.
Oh my Lord!
This is a true story.
That's like a movie.
I had to stop the truck, open the armored door, and ask these guys sitting on a stoop, just like something out of a movie. And how do you get back on the I-95?
Yeah.
And the boys were helpful. We didn't get rolled, but it was close. And anyway, we get that truck home, and we're talking. I'm going into Canadian Tire owner saying, "Hey, listen, here I'm 20-odd years old, and I got an armored car I just bought, and I got some insurance here in case I lose your money, but I'd like to move your money." And they liked the underdog. They liked the young, ambitious person that I was. They liked to support the underdog, and I little by little, I grew that book of business with a bag phone on the trucks, doing an hour a day, making phone calls, then 2 hours a day, making phone calls to where we filled that route to where we had to buy a second truck.
Wow!
And it took about a year or two to get off to get to the point where I could not have to rely on the military so much and teach for St. John Emily's, where I could take a bit of it. Our first year, it took a year to get our first paycheck. It was $75 a week.
Oh my God!
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just an augmentation. So our jobs to pay ourselves. Mine was the military. My business partner used to work bouncing at DB Cooper's when it existed in Spryfield, and then we ran an armored car company. A couple hours of daytime, and then that's how we built it.
Yeah.
And a year into it, though, our customers say, "Listen, you got your stuff wired tight with armored car. You got the uniforms and the vests and the truck, and you're doing well. Yeah. Can you provide security?" And that's where my unit really kicked in, where I hired a bunch of
so you just said, "Hell yeah, I can provide
put them in a security uniform." Yeah, I said, "Yes, I can." Okay. So a year into that we started providing security. Now the funny part was that the Nova Scotia Department of Justice said, "Lawrence, you can't have an Independent Armoured Transport crest on the shoulder with armored services on a guard standing at a door. They're going to think the person's armed. You got to come up with a new name." So we started thinking about it and said, "Well, Independent Armoured Transport Atlantic is our name for armored. We're doing security services, Independent Security Services Atlantic, right?" Yeah. And the Atlantic part was that we were going to expand. Like, we were young, we had visions of grandeur. Independent Atlantic, Central. If we went up up in Ontario and operated up there, or Western, we could change it to Western.
Right, of course.
West. In hindsight, I'm happy to be in Atlantic Canada, and that's where I've stayed and I've grown, and I'm not no ambition to take over the world at all. But yeah, a year into it, we got asked to go into security. We had to come up with another company name, and this is where the whole two companies combined for total security management came into place, ISS and IET. And we started providing security at the very doors that our armed guards used to walk through just to pick up the cash and the coin, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we had guards out there, and that took off. Right, and this is where the allocation of resources, the division of labor with the business partner and I, really started to ramp up. We had to get now managers in place, supervisors, and when you do that, every time you pay someone to do a job you do yourself, you're dropping your margins, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So we did that for about 10 years and grew the security company to a couple of $1 million, $3 million. We were in the fastest growing companies with Progress Magazine when that existed. We were in top 101 companies there,
cool.
As we grew it, and those are other motivations for me to which is why we started Apex, recognition of that. But 10 years into it, they asked us, can you do delivery services, courier? And I'm like, well, we got armored cars, we know how to drive vehicles, we got security officers in uniforms. Right. Why don't we just take a security officer and put him in a vehicle and call it a courier service, but it'll be a high-level courier service. You have a licensed, bonded, uniformed, marked, deckled, security officer, security vehicle. And we started moving drugs. So for a long time there, we were operating with moving drugs and money, right? With guns, drugs, and money. Wow. So, but legally.
So with that being said, I'm just going to ask him, you're one Conrad who the previous business partner brought you on at 50%. Do you want another Conrad at 50% partner?
There you go.
I'm willing to come on for 50%.
You don't want the stress and headaches, trust me.
For 50%, I probably would.
I'll tell you what, we hit 10 million in 2020 during COVID because everybody wanted access control.
That's right.
They wanted security, they wanted delivery, and our margins at 3 million were close to what our margins were at 10, and that's because it's
expense.
It's scale doesn't always stay constant, right? And as you grow it, and I'm not an economist, I'm not even a bookkeeper. I pay people to do that stuff, but from my experience, the bigger definitely is not always better.
You train all your staff, right? Like you guys, train all the folks that come on, and I mean,
actually, that's a good segue to this because he has a really, really great facility.
Okay,
you can explain a little bit the facility, and also another thing we can go into is because a little bit about your employment practice and stuff like that. But right now, your facility is fantastic.
So when we got into the armored car side of things, right, there were two big nationals in place, and I only got in because I hooked up with this guy who was already in it, and he had gotten one of the big contracts from Liquor Corporation. So I helped him grow that. And the branching into security a year later, we looked at it and says, okay, armored cars, there's very few companies, very few people that do it. We went from sidearms that were 38 caliber handguns, the old 6-shooters, to 9 millimeters because of my training in the military. So I brought a lot of that to the organization, to this civilian owner. Me being in the military, that was the value added of him having me on. So he didn't just give me 50%. I earned my way onto it and into it. And when we get into the security side, I asked the question, well, why are we going to be getting different? What's going to make it different? I started thinking, and at that time there was a lot of talk about the blurred lines between private and public policing. And I remember that it was the Natalie DeRosier. She was with the Law Commission of Conference of Canada, Law Commission of Canada, and they were talking a lot about what can police do, what can security do, can we how can these two organizations complement each other in an asymbiotic environment, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I looked at it, I said, what separates the security company from Department of Natural Resources, Fisheries and Oceans, municipal, provincial, federal police departments, the Army, the military, and it's the level of training. Right. It's level of training. So I said, well, let's get training. So that's when I pushed to get onto a course with at Sig Arms Academy. Actually, couldn't take any firearms courses in Canada that would give you any type of qualification. So when I went to the Nova Scotia Department of Justice and I spoke to the director of training, Roy Kennedy at the time, he said, go to the States, Sig Arms Academy. I got a friend of mine that runs it. He's a former DEA. Take the course down there for tactical pistol instructor. Come back and you can have a 9mm. Let you upgrade. So I did that. Then I went back on my armors course, went back up my range master course. I actually wrote the range instructions for their outdoor range they still use today. Mm-hmm. Little help from the military on that one too, right? So the firearms training was me, and then my ex-business partner at the time, he went and got the officer safety instructor course that was now available to security because we had caused so much of a rift, so many waves, asking for training. So look, we get an armored car company to carry guns. We need to have training. And I kept pushing it. I kept pushing the liability issue with the Department of Justice. But when the Department of Justice gives you the allowance to do these things, they take on that liability. So they're a little reluctant at times, right? Unless you prove your salt, prove your worth. And I went in there and I talked to Roy Kennedy. I talked to the firearms officer at the time, Martin Kramer. And I said, I want to go forward. I want to set the standard in this industry. Here I am, this kid, and I got all these. There was like 70 companies in the province at the time, and we were allowed to attend the officer safety training that the Nova Scotia Department of Justice put on. We were the only security company allowed to take it. And that was 25 years ago. Cool. So we got qualified officer safety. We put a few more people into that role. As a result of those placements, these people that were with us are now in key senior positions in all these organizations, sheriffs, corrections, policing.
And you're still bringing a lot of people into this day.
We do. We're a stepping stone into the police department, sheriff's department, corrections. There was a time, jumping back to the armored car side, the only ones who carried firearms were police, armored car, and the military, but they forgot about armored car. There was no advancement in armored car. Yeah. Right. So when we started rattling the chain and saying, look, we're part of the gun carrying community as well, and this was around the time that the Department of Natural Resources and Fisheries and Oceans were saying, listen, we have to deal with a lot of unsafe situations here with hunters, high-powered rifles, and fishermen that have shotguns on their boats. We need to be armed. Right? So someone seen this as an officer safety issue and said, okay, we're going to arm you. And that's when the gun carrying community was created, what they termed the gun carrying community. And that was my entrance into getting the qualifications that I was able to get outside of the military, and having them recognized on the civilian side.
So some of you guys went on to the DFO, you're saying, and
No, we went on the same course they took. So there was DFO, DNR, police, sheriffs, RCMP. We were all in the same group, and we were there with them.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I held my own because they knew I was military. Mm-hmm. So, if I was, to say just a security guy, but the stereotypical look of the security guard, right? I was an owner, but I was in the military. So when I got there, I had to prove myself, and I did, because I knew I was being looked at, right? Because I'm not law enforcement. I'm not a peace officer. Yeah. And made a lot of friends, still have a lot of them today. But the point of it is that we got those qualifications. And today, fast forward 28 years, 25 years, we are the only security company allowed to in-house certify all our own people in officer safety.
Which is the only
company in Canada. I don't know about Canada, but and these are certifications that are the exact same qualifications that the police department take. But going back to our training program, when we started out and we identified that training was the key to rise us above all the other companies who simply because all you need is a license, proof of insurance. You come up with a crest that the Registry of Joint Stocks name, and a crest that the Department of Justice will give you the thumbs up on. Away you go. You can hire a person, check their heartbeat, make sure it's beating, and put them in front of the door. Give them a little bit of instruction on what to do, and that was it. But when we got into it 20 odd years ago, it was we were in some fairly dangerous environments. Well, not just that, but dangerous environments like low-income housing and places out in the the dark end of Dartmouth and the bad part of Halifax or the north end. We were becoming security, right? So we were being asked to secure a lot of dangerous places, and this is where that whole approach to training came in. And I remember of the Corps of Commissioners, when they had gotten a site that was too volatile for them, they would call us up and say, give it to ISS. They actually trained their people, right? Because I have full respect for the Corps, former military and all that, but they weren't into that physical use of force, handcuffs, batons, firearms. We would train everything from conflict intervention to field interview to strikes, kicks, punches, blocks, grips, break holes. They have nicer names for them now, but back in the day, we'll call it. Yeah. These were the titles to all these periods of instruction, and the instruction mirrored the instruction for the military. All
right, that's awesome.
There was the intro, the body, the conclusion. We put together 40-minute segment.
You heavily now. What I've seen is like you're heavily employing newcomers to Canada.
Yeah.
So you seemed, I don't know, how do you go about like kind of reaching that out and kind of getting,
So, I mean, COVID, right? So small and medium business is the backbone of the Canadian economy, right?
Yeah.
No matter what, person in any level of government says, that is the truth. So when COVID hit, it devastated a lot of these businesses. Now, for us, it didn't. For us, it was, everybody wanted access control, everybody wanted career, they wanted delivery, right? They don't want to go to their houses.
Yeah.
So for a while there, we were flush with staff because people were getting laid off for whatever reason, business was shutting down, and people needed work. So we would take on a lot of new staff from the local area and license them and uniform them and put them in vehicles, put them in front doors, and they would provide the services, right?
Yeah.
When it started to wind down, everybody went back to the workplaces for the most part. We experienced a very big slump. Yeah. And the only thing to fill that gap was immigration. Yeah. And I'll tell you right now, without these new Canadians, and we're running at about 300 staff now, and I would say that probably 65-70% of our workforce is new Canadians.
Yeah. Cool.
From India, from Pakistan, and they're great individuals. They are. Our angle with our company, one of the benefits was we're part of the AIP program, the Atlantic Immigration Program.
Oh, cool.
So that was something that we get into very, very early, where we were able to, anyone that worked with us had to do a certain amount of hours, and it went towards their citizenship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, cool. 100%. So they, it was something that attracted a lot of the new Canadians. There's actually, I'm told there's an ISS India Facebook page where a lot of our staff, where there's hundreds of former and current serving staff that communicate on that site. I don't know what's on it. I don't know if I want to know what's on it. I know we've caught a few individuals with the same last names, kind of, hey, I can't do the shift tonight, man. Can you go? So if Matt and I were working together, two Conrads,
no way.
We might catch it on the sheet that Matt Conrad did the shift at the Radisson. So like, let's say if we had a shift at a certain location, right? And we look at the timesheet, it's Matt Conrad when it should have been Lawrence Conrad. So sometimes we catch that kind of stuff. But the work gets done by the staff, and it all works out in the end. But without immigration, we would be in a very hard place, and even now. And if you look around if you look around the community, though, if you take a look at what Nova Scotia, and I asked why Nova Scotia. It's cold here. It's not much like where they hail from. Mm-hmm. And I was told by a few that it's a lot easier here. Nova Scotia is a lot more conducive to. It facilitates the immigration process a lot more so than most other provinces.
I think it's because it's a little slower paced, easier way of life.
No. It's the requirements to get their citizenship.
So they're more lax.
It's a little less rigid than other provinces. Now I don't know where the rigidity lies, in other provinces, and where it's more, accommodating here. But that's what I'm getting as feedback from our staff.
Okay.
Interesting.
So then you decide, I'm not busy enough because, being military and RSM and, running a company and all this stuff. And, I decided, hey, you know what, let's become a publisher. And let's run a magazine. So what was the inspiration?
Honestly, inspiration is the right word, motivation. Neville Guilfoyle was the owner of Progress Magazine, and when I was younger, and we started making some numbers, we got a call from Jen Ryan saying, hey, you want to put in for fastest growing or top 101 or see where you place. Yeah. And, out of the top 101, we might have been, 100, right? But we made it. And that just gave me the energy and drive to I want to be 50, I want to be 10, I want to be 1. Yeah. Now, with that said, you're competing against the Kents and the Sobeys and the very large organizations. You're never going to get to number 1, really, unless it's generational, right? My kids' might get there eventually, but But no, Neville was a big. It was a big motivation for me. His magazine, because you could get profiled in that magazine, you could get recognized, and we want to get back to the celebration of small and medium business through Apex magazine.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes down that same road as Progress. And when Neville passed away, that whole thing died.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you have Atlantic Business, but they don't do the function that we had at Station 6 last year.
Yeah.
Which is where we are, by the way. We should actually
we're
say
here
that.
again, and we were here for that event. Both of us were,
Yeah,
that's
100%.
awesome.
And that was we had about 50, 60 people at that.
Yeah,
and that was just
absolutely.
phone calls. If we had chucked it out on Facebook, I'm sure we could have had a couple of hundred.
Yeah.
But we wanted to keep it manageable because, John Kopp and I, my co-publisher, John owns Creative Curve Publishing. We've gotten into this as, when I say a little bit of philanthropy, there it is, right? That magazine doesn't make any money at all.
Right.
It's cost us quite a bit, and we got some grant applications in place, and we're looking at going from paper to digital. We have a meeting with. We actually hired a consultant, Max Brennan, who used to work for Progress and now owns Optimize.
In the magazine, I would love to just go and see articles. So if I catch on one that really inclines me, like the Frank's Hot Sauce, I just click on to get the article because you guys have some amazing content.
It really is, and I can't take credit for that.
Your journalists
I'm more of a
are
finance
good.
guy. We have a call every Tuesday and Wednesday, and we talk about. We have a journalist, we have an editor, and then John and I are the publishers. We have photographers across the provinces, and they do an amazing job of pulling together what you see on paper.
Yeah.
Now, I'm an old school guy. I like to have a magazine on a coffee table, and everybody's telling me you got to go digital, you got to do this, you got to do that. So tomorrow we're actually meeting at noon for the way forward with this magazine, and
we'll get Matt and I in there, and we'll teach you how to TikTok Apex. Right?
I got 4 kids that are. I got a 12 and 13-year-old.
Okay, so you got all the coaching you need for TikTok.
Yeah, I got to pull them off TikTok.
The 12 and 13-year-old know more about TikTok than we do.
So my stepdaughter literally shot me because she was like, we were putting TikToks up for afternoon pint. I was doing the 24 days of beer miss, and every day I was having a different beer and just singing a song, right, just for fun. And she's like, you got to improve your hashtags. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, she gave me all these different acronyms to use. And sure enough, man, the views went from 200 to 900.
I'm scared. So
kids know.
Oh my God. I got a 4-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I got a 9, a 12, and a 13-year-old girls.
Yeah.
My wife says they're all mine. That's the joke. And I'll tell you, TikTok, I'm scared to check what they put up. I'm sure it's clean because I warn them, and I'm a firm but fair dad.
Yeah.
And I'm a kind of a no shit kind of guy. If I can swear a little bit here. And the mom like Tanya, she's awesome. And I think we got some great kids. They're in dance.
Nice.
And that's the other part of my business. I own buildings.
I knew that. Yeah.
So I'm trying to create a little bit of generational wealth because I came from nothing.
Sure.
And part of that is to get into land ownership and some rentals. My building I own in Bears Lake, and then the Shoppers Drug Mart, the old Shoppers that I now own in Tantallon, and we're looking at to acquire another building over in Dartmouth. That's kind of what we're to be in the security and armored car business, and moving into courier, and then doing the magazine as a celebration of all that stuff that's allowed me to do what I do.
Yeah.
I guess the end state will be, moving into the real estate side of things and trying to slow down, because there's not so much involved in operations when you own land,
right?
When you own buildings, there's some oversight, but it's so busy with everything else that we do. When you're people management, right? It is probably the most taxing thing that we deal with.
It's never ending.
With 300 staff.
Yeah.
It is never ending, and our human resources department really is our managers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a daily, not struggle. It's a daily responsibility to make sure that our staff
you're upholding a lot of people
doing what they're doing, and that they're treated right, and they're treating the customers right.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've had a long-term general manager too. Like Sean's been.
Yeah, most of my senior staff, 18 years, 19 years for Sean, Mark, 18 years. Everybody's over 10 on the management side. A lot of staff have been sticking around for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And one of the things we do, we have our yearly Christmas parties, and we have employees of the months, and we have the bonus program that we have, and different incentives. But one of the good ones I like, and it's, if you last 10 years with us, if you can put up with me as an owner for 10 years in my management style, you get a nice watch, and the budget for that's $500. Normally I'll snag a watch $700-800 for $500 on sale. I actually deal with the watch company, which is a local business. We try and support locals as much as we can, but you get a watch with ISSIT engraved on the back of your name.
I've seen it. Yeah, he buys a nice watch.
Yeah, they're nice watches, and we it's one of the things. If you're going to give 10 years of your life to me, you're going to walk away with something.
Sure.
Hopefully you wear it and you don't pawn it.
I got one last question for you, I think, and then we should probably wrap this up. So my burning question is, would you have done anything differently?
I wish I had some real deep. Here's the deepest I'm going to get.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I worked my butt off because we grew up poor.
I'm going to work. Poverty doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah, but I'm going to work my butt off so that I can get everything I wanted.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, this is straight from the heart, dude. Best thing I ever did was have kids. Like, nobody says that. I got to put this in a way that people are going to understand it when they hear this. I grew up with nothing. A typical alcoholic dysfunctional family. Love my family, but we had a lot of problems.
Sure.
And I come out of that, and I said I'll never do that to my kids. Before I had kids, my happiness, I would buy stuff. I bought my house early. I bought sports cars. I bought motorcycles. I bought skidoos. I bought boats. I bought everything you can imagine. I probably have in my garage.
I still have yet to drive your Viper, by the way.
I haven't driven the Viper.
You have a Viper?
He has a Viper.
I haven't driven that.
And he says I can drive it, and I still haven't driven it yet.
What year is the Viper?
It's a 94 Gen 1.
Oh, my God.
Yup.
Dude.
And I got a Shelby Cobra, 570 horsepower.
That's
up on
also
lift,
why.
2 years.
Oh my gosh.
But no, what I want to get to though, honestly, is money. Truly, money cannot. And I know you see all these things on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram.
Sure.
All these memes. Money can't buy happiness. Yeah. I know this. My brother, he wanted everything I wanted before I had it. Mm-hmm. And I have to continually remind him, look, I did exactly what I wanted to do. I made a lot of money, and I bought a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I'm telling you, that stuff becomes a burden. And then when you have kids and you realize what life is really about.
Yeah, that's true.
This stuff pales in comparison. What happens, it becomes a weight.
Yeah.
Right? I'm talking about, like, the cars, the bikes, that you got to insure them, you got to maintain them, you got to.
Right.
And
you ain't got no time to friggin' use them.
Well, you don't. Time and space. Everything in the military is time and space. But I call myself a high-end hoarder, right? So I have this stuff, and I'm telling you, like, what my focus is now, when I'm 52, is to declutter. Yeah. And I want to go. I'm not going to become a minimalist, but I want to minimize what I have. If you want to do something with your life that you're going to enjoy, you want to focus on one or two things and enjoy those one or two things. And the one regret I have is that I never really got into. I bought a Takamine guitar, never learned with an amp, never learned how to use it. Still have it at the house.
Ain't too late.
I got all these things that I wanted to do, but I would, and this is where the ADHD kicks in, is the focus.
Yeah.
I'd buy it, I'd use it for a couple of weeks, and I'd just put it aside. I'd buy a new mountain bike with all the gear, put it aside, hanging up in the ceiling in the garage, and that's where it would collect dust. But long and short of it is, money won't buy happiness. I bought everything that I thought would make me happy, and all it really became was a burden. And the real happiness that I have truly is my wife and my kids and my family and my friends. Right? So there's three types of people in your world. Your family, and they come first. Your friends, and some friends are like family. Everyone else is just an acquaintance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, I think that's a fantastic message, honestly.
I love it.
Yeah. It's great. That being said, if you're handing things off, the afternoon pint will definitely take your Viper, and we'll brand it.
100%.
We'll brand it. One of the other things.
Can we visit your pot? We'll do it. We're getting into video soon. We're going to come over and visit you. It'll be like Jay Leno's garage.
I think one of the things I've conveyed to Matt is I have 30 years of my life now.
He writes everything down. He says he's not a computer guy. He actually writes everything down in a journal every day.
I'm a bit of a computer guy, but I chronicle.
Dude, that writing is very tiny.
It is, and so I have 20. I have these. They're called daytimers. Brown line. This is 2024.
Yeah.
I have my 2023 for reference in every page. Everything is all you guys.
That does not look like it's written in English. I'm not lying.
It is. And what I do, I have arrows, and I have my own little legend I put in here, and I started injecting things in here.
Yeah.
And I've done a timeline on how long it will take my kids to read these.
Sure.
If I live to 75 or 80, if I make it that far, I'll have so many of these. And I did a timeline on how long it would take them to all read it. But what I've started to do is put little entries like, Lainey, I know that I'm gone now, but I just wanted to say, and I'll put something about Lainey. I'll put something about Haley, or I'll put something about Paisley, or about Cole, my son. And when they see this, they'll be bawling their eyes out, because I'll be in the ground, right? And they'll be reading through these. And I remember I got that I found a little diary my dad had when he first bought our little shack.
Yeah.
And he said, I took my first bath in my first home, and it was just really moving. It was emotional, actually.
So cool, man.
And he's dead now. So I lost
one. That's another thing, too. Yeah. In the last year, you've lost both of your parents.
And this is what put things in perspective. Dad went in February. He was 73, should have lived a lot longer. Mom just went November 30th, and that was just passed, and she was 70. Both died too young, It was hard on the kids, hard on everybody, to be honest. And the more I see this happening, the older I get, the more people are starting to pass. You start to realize what really means things in your life. And I think everybody goes through this evolution as you grow. So you get into business, you make all this money, your ambition, your drive, and your determination, and all those catchphrases that they use, you either put into play or you don't.
Yeah.
And if they are into play and you're making that kind of coin and you're buying that stuff, and none of that's buying you happiness. None of it. Right now, what I do is I put it in the bank, I set up for the future.
Yeah.
And, I hope that it'll go well. You know, the old saying, it takes 3 generations. So I'm going to bust my butt and build this generational wealth if it's going to be called that. And, put 100% effort into it. Then I give it to my kids, and they're going to maintain it. But will they really build it? So it'll just kind of flatline. And then they give it to their kids, and then they blow it. So 3 generations of ruin wealth unless you got your plan in place all the way through, right? That's another little piece of advice I was always told.
Wow.
That plan is 50% Matt Conrad partner.
we talked
You're not even cutting your co-host like 25.
We talked about doing stuff together before, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
there it is, man.
Awesome.
We never got into like I'm a competitive shooter and all that other stuff, but you can only.
But
pack so much
honestly,
stuff into this.
exactly.
Only
But
pack so much
realistically,
into an
like
hour. This was
a great chat.
great
And
overview.
honestly, I mean, we don't see each other as much as we probably would like to. But I mean, we've known each other for so long. I literally was a teenager when I met him, and we've grown up together essentially. Like you're like family to me.
100%, brother.
Yeah.
What about you, man?
So it was really. It's honestly, I think this ended up being even better than I thought it was going to be, and I thought it was going to be great.
I'm a very regimented guy. Like I'm like boom, 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 boom. But whatever. Hopefully you'll be able to dissect that a little bit. And
I think it's a lot of great material. We're going to use it all.
Yeah.
All right. So on that, we're going to cheers.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheers one last time.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
that was great, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Wicked show, guys. Good job.